We got a fat athlete here who's lying on his back. So we're going to reduce his meals and increase the work.
Glen Mills, head coach at Racers Track Club in Kingston, Jamaica, hasn't a single athletics medal to his name. His fledgling career petered out in its infancy when he came to the significant realization that he wasn't particularly fast. However, his love of the sport endured. Mills turned his attention to coaching, and the rest is history. His tooties at the Racers Track Club have won an incredible 71 medals at the IAAF World Championships and 33 at Olympic competitions, a tally that continues to rise. 19 of these have come from one man, the fastest man ever in fact, who unhesitantly praises his mentor at every opportunity.
Coach Mills is just a genius. He's always found a way to get me in shape for the big moment. Always. I don't know how he does it.
As Usain Bolt gears up for what looks to be his ultimate summer of competition, we take a moment to consider the man responsible for his meteoric rise. Upon abandoning his track and field ambitions, the 14-year-old Mills was taken under the wing of Henry McDonald Messam, coach at Camperdown High School in Kingston. He progressed from undertaking odd jobs at the track to being entrusted with a younger class of athletes to mentor and instruct. He's been coaching for 43 years, providing the depth and breadth of experience with which he has nurtured some of the best athletes of all time. Coaches, of course, require coaching themselves, and Mills has striven to develop an innate understanding of anatomy, agility, coordination, talent identification, and biomechanical analysis through a series of courses with the IOC, IAAF, and other highly respected organizations to hone his craft. There are elements of coaching which can't be learnt though. Central to Mills' philosophy is thinking outside the box when scouring his homeland for talent, an art he has perfected. Whilst collegiate scouts scribble down race numbers of podium-topping youngsters, Mills might be preoccupied with the athlete towards the back of the field. He looks for potential, not a ready-made superstar. Almost 20 years ago, he quietly pointed out an individual finishing outside of the medals in a high school race, seeing something special in a seemingly average performance. The teenager's name? Asefa Powell. Mills was eventually called up to work at the Jamaican Amateur Athletic Association before rising to become head coach of the Jamaican national team in 1987, a post he held for 22 years before stepping down to focus on his Racers Track Club team, where he remains today. After a disappointing showing at the Athens Olympics, crashing out of the heats in the 200-meter, Bolt sought out Mills as the man who might enable him to finally fulfill his youthful promise. Mills was well aware of Bolt's natural ability, but also of his poor technique, a backwards running style, and lack of core strength, triggering a series of hamstring problems. He undertook a 2-year project of pulling apart the sprinter's technique, painstakingly breaking his bad habits, and then reassembling it, all in today's world-beating form. It was a repetitive and challenging process, often requiring hours of video analysis to help correct the minor details of Bolt's individual race stages. The two had a rare disagreement at this point over the future of Bolt's career. Mills was convinced his protege was best suited the longer sprints, whilst his charge was determined to focus upon the 100-meter. Coach Mills agreed Bolt could do so as soon as he broke the Jamaican 200-meter record, which proved the perfect motivation and initial target for their pairing. At the 2007 Jamaican Championships in June, Bolt duly dipped below Don Corey's mark, which stood for 36 years, by 1/1100th of a second, running 19.75 seconds. As a coach, Mills is a true technician. His attention to detail and the intricacies of race phases, technique, and execution is manifest in each of Bolt's trackside interviews, at which point his usually jovial manner is replaced by serious discussion of his discipline. Mills is careful to balance this with development of his athletes' psychological prowess, integrating motivational work into their daily routines, in the hope of producing well-rounded individuals, rather than senseless speed machines. Mills' work has allowed a prodigiously talented youngster to transition to the senior world stage. One of Mills' mantras is that athletes must lose in order to learn to win, and this grounded nature, he acknowledges that someone someday will beat Bolt's world records, is one of the reasons his athletes have such faith in him. Mills is notorious for keeping his cards close to his chest, leaving his sprinters unaware until fairly close to major championships, which events they'll be contesting. Athletes within another setup might find this frustrating, but Coach Mills' Tooties are happy to have utter faith in their mentor. You get the sense that if Mills told Bolt to run his next 100-meter barefooted from a standing start, the great Jamaican would oblige without hesitation.
Go! Yeah, look good. That was smooth!
Glen Mills, Usain Bolt's coach, believes that speed endurance and pure speed have to work hand in hand. People tend to separate them and do speed endurance as a single component, and then do explosive speed training as a single component. A lot of times athletes say they have not started speed work yet, which means they have been doing speed endurance work. Mills' philosophy is that the two should run concurrently and that coaches should try to develop a balance. To keep the athletes fresh and explosive, the load has to be slightly reduced as you go to high velocity and high quality performance in training, the work that is done in the last part of the competitive period leading up to the major competition. A greater degree of rest is required for recovery, and explosive training must be greatly reduced to maybe once or twice a week, and a recovery should not be less than 36 hours. 48 hours would even be better. A lot of coaches feel that if you reduce the workload too much in terms of training time, the athlete will lose something. But that is not Glen Mills' experience. Countless studies on foot mechanics and performance have been done, but the best and most straightforward investigation is seeing if one simply runs faster with different shoes. Studies ranging from barefoot testing, different spike plates, and even different types of track ranging from soft to hard. What was found is the hardness of the plate increases the performance. And while some may think that horizontal forces from the friction of spikes matter, one must rethink the value when athletes are able to sprint across the ice rinks at full speed, as seen in the video. Full speed running is maximal velocity mechanics, meaning more vertical forces are being placed on the ground, up and down, rather than behind the athlete. We can conclude that the spikes should be hard to transmit forces through the track and light enough not to slow down the leg when it's swinging in the air. Athletes want hard track in competition, and the same rule applies with a hard spike. Cushioning is good, perhaps, for training with distance runners. When it comes to speed, hard options rule, but to a limit.
Jamaica's Usain Bolt has redefined the limits of sprinting in recent years, lowering the 100-meter world record to 9.58 seconds. This hasn't ended the debate. How fast can a human run? Australian physiologist and coach Jeremy Richmond believes that Bolt and sprinters of his caliber have already maximized the amount of force they apply to the track when sprinting. That leaves just one crucial variable that can be improved: ground contact time. The faster you put them down and pick them up, the faster you can run. Studies of top sprinters have shown they have reached a ground contact time of 80 milliseconds. Richmond thinks this can be lowered to 70 milliseconds. He bases this on studies of fast-twitch muscle fiber contractions and of quadriceps muscle contractions. If Bolt or future record holders can run 100 meters with Bolt's force production, plus a ground contact time of just 70 milliseconds, he'll reach a top speed of 12.75 meters per second, and it would lower the 100-meter record to 9.27 seconds. If scientists and coaches can develop a training method to further shorten muscle contraction time, it seems plausible that human beings could run even faster. Bolt's 10-meter split times from his world record race versus Richmond's predicted splits for a 9.27 race.